I have not met very many people that are happy about how the mining or the crafting have been implemented into Star Citizen. As somebody who really never mines at all or does anything like that in a game, I decided that I would give it a shot myself, see what it's all about, and what their vision is for this entire crafting mining system. And I gotta tell you, for what I've seen so far, it really sucks. But it's not something that is unable to be salvaged. It can be fixed pretty easily, actually, with a few changes to quality of life and just general user accessibility and tedium removal. The first problem that I observed with this patch and this design implementation is that there are currently 1,000 levels of quality, and they're broken down into brackets, so you have 0 to 100, all the way up to 1,000. All vendor items are at least 500 quality. So what this means is that when you're out mining, anything out there that is under 500 quality is actually worthless. As a matter of fact, anything 500 quality is also worthless. So you need at a bare minimum 600 plus to get a good item. And because of the time it takes to find and do anything, it's not worth you going out there for just something that is 600 quality. So you tend to be looking for something higher like 700 plus, ideally 800, usually is a pretty decent spot. So anything under 7 and 800 is actually worthless. So in essence, what the first 500 rarity levels are doing is actually creating this buffer of garbage that you have to work through until you actually have a chance to get something you want. There are two potential solutions for this. The first one is that you just remove the first 500 rarity levels and everything starts off at 500. That becomes a new bare minimum. A second solution would be the ability to take low quality items and refine them into higher quality items. That way everything has a use to some degree. Perhaps you could even do both, I don't know. But the way materials work in this game and the way the spawn system works for these materials, they get assigned a rarity whenever they spawn into the world. I've observed this because I've done bed logging and have logged out in one location, logged back in onto another server, saw the same rock in the same spot, and it had a different rarity. So they're assigned a rarity when they spawn. If people are not mining the garbage stuff, good stuff never has a chance to respawn. So there has to be something to either get people to mine the garbage, or maybe they just have to spawn a new one after a certain amount of time. I don't know. But I think you could probably use your head here to figure out why having so much crap that you can't use is a problem, because the good stuff just becomes more and more rare because those are the only things that actually get hit. Now, this might not be too bad if it wasn't for how mining and everything else in Star Citizen works. So you have to go to the planet, fly out there, whatever, that takes time. Then you get to the planet, and then you have to start pinging and scanning for things. You get a bunch of unknown radar contacts. You then have to go and check those contacts to make sure it is what you actually want. These contacts could be anything from plants to wildlife on the planet and just random ores that you have no interest in whatsoever. Now, I'm sure some of you out there are going to say, well, you could just look at the radar signature return and then use the math to figure out what it is that you're actually looking for. Well, to get the numbers to do this math requires you to use a third-party resource that gives you all of the radar contact signatures, so you know that like 3,000 is iron and 5,000 is something else that you want. That's creating more tedium and is creating a reliance on using out-of-game tools. And out-of-game tools typically exist because the game itself is not providing you with the information that it should be providing you with in the first place. Solution here, also very simple. When you're out there and I'm mining, I do not want to see copions. I do not want to see reed stalks or whatever the hell they're called. The only thing I want to see is ore that I can mine. I'm in mining mode after all. I don't care about anything else. I will even take it one step further. I do not want to see an unknown contact when I scan. I want to see iron or laranite or whatever I'm looking for right there. That way I know exactly what it is and I can then fly towards it to start scanning it. That would make this entire process a lot more user-friendly and a bit less tedious, and I do not see a downside to it. But speaking of scanning, why do we even have to go through the process of scanning in the first place? Scanning was something that we had to do for player names at one point, and they removed that, so now we just hit tab and we see whatever ship that we see, who owns it, and etc. We no longer have to scan them. Why do I have to scan the rocks? What does it add to the game? Why could I not just tab, get the ping out there, and then that ping return shows me the quality of the material inside of the rock? And hey, you could even keep the scanning, just make the time it takes to scan the rocks even shorter. Because a lot of times in a patch of material, you're scanning 4 and sometimes 5 rocks. That adds up. Especially when the things you scan are all worthless garbage. A lot of these little tedious problems add up over time, and then they become a big problem. And the big problem is that this whole system, the mining and all that, is a very boring process. It's not very fun. Typically in games, when you have gathering professions or life skills, they're a fun and relaxing experience that you do, and then passively over time, you can get material to make something worthwhile. That is simply not the case in Star Citizen. Mining in Star Citizen is a very tedious and time-consuming gameplay loop that now also is not very rewarding, yet is simultaneously mandatory if you want to progress your character. I know there are people out there that like mining, and I'm not going to disparage what you enjoy in the game. I, again, personally do not like it. However, I question why the systems were designed as they are to be so unfriendly and unapproachable to players. And if Star Citizen is going to truly have a quote-unquote player economy, which I don't believe for a second, are the extreme minority of players who enjoy this mind-numbing stuff going to be providing material and weapons and armor for the entire player base? That does not add up. People love to compare this to Star Wars Galaxies, but the mining and crafting experience in Star Wars Galaxies, which was very good, was nowhere near as tedious and aggravating as this. And when a system like this becomes so tedious and so aggravating, what inevitably follows is the real money trading sites that come in and provide services for real-life money to get the best of the best stuff. And a game which now has vertical power progression, or buying this stuff will give you direct power over other players, it's going to be a problem. On the screen right now I'm putting up some ads, and these are ads I found when seeing what was out there for sale currently on Star Citizen after a couple days. And as you can see, people are now selling 900 plus quality items for players to use. These sites always exist, but they are encouraged to exist when a system is so unobtainable and inaccessible to the normal average human being that they, who value their time of course, would rather spend real-life money to have the best stuff now. And in a game which now has very steep vertical progression for gear, all positives, no negatives, it's going to heavily push and incentivize players to do this. But this is also a two-part problem. The people who are selling these things, a very small portion of them are going to be doing it legitimately. A very small portion of them are going to be legitimately going out there and mining the material, crafting the items, and then making these things to sell. What they are going to be doing, however, is going out there, finding one very high quality material, and then duping it. So they just have to get a 900 plus material once, and then they can dupe it infinitely. And we all know Star Citizen has a duping problem, and this is no different, and these materials are being duped. CIG has not been able to get a handle on the duping issue for about 4 or 5 years now. They are not going to get a handle on it anytime soon. Another way they're going to get these materials is flat out through cheating. And we all know that cheats in Star Citizen exist. I did a video about it. People were flying around and blowing up capital ships with an Aurora, teleporting players around the world, teleporting items to themselves. There's all these things. And it does not matter if you ban these people, because the money they make from selling the items is going to pay for the $45 entry fee that Star Citizen has. This is a very real problem, and this is what happens, and this is what is created when you have a system that is so daunting and so time-consuming and tedious and boring that regular people say, you know what, screw it. I'd rather just go buy the best items or the best materials with my money and then go play the game. This gathering and crafting system is the most boring, time-consuming, and tedious experience I have ever had in an MMO's crafting system. And it is going to create more problems than it is ever going to solve. And then let's just pretend that the RMT and cheating doesn't exist, which it will, by the way. But let's pretend that it doesn't. Under the current system, with the current implementation, how on earth are an extreme minority of people willing to tolerate this crap going to provide all of the goods and materials for the rest of the normal people playing in the verse? It just simply does not add up.